Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Wherever you are right now, I hope you're comfortable. Perhaps you're lying down or sitting somewhere soft. Maybe the lights are dim or the room is dark. However you found your way to this moment, you're welcome here. We're going on a journey together, you and I. A journey downward into one of the most mysterious places on our planet. The deep ocean, that vast, quiet world that covers most of our Earth, yet remains more unknown to us than the surface of the moon. As we begin our descent, I want you to breathe slowly. There's no rush. The ocean has been here for billions of years, and it will be here long after we're gone. Time moves differently in the deep places. Everything is slower there, calmer, more patient, and tonight we can borrow some of that patience for ourselves. Let's imagine together that we're sinking gently through the water. The sunlight is still bright here, near the surface. You can see it dancing, fractured into 1,000 moving pieces of gold and blue. Fish dart past in silver flashes. The water is warm, but we're not staying here. We're going deeper, always deeper, just below the surface, where sunlight begins to forget how to reach. There exists a place called the Twilight Zone. Scientists call it the Mesopelagic Zone, but Twilight Zone feels more honest, doesn't it? More poetic. This realm stretches from about 200 meters down to 1,000 meters below the surface. To put that in perspective, if you stood at the bottom of this zone and looked up, the surface would be farther away than 3 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other. The light here is dim, perpetually dim, like the last moments before night fully arrives on land. Something beautiful happens to light as it travels through water. It doesn't just fade, it transforms. The ocean filters light like a prism in reverse, taking away colors one by one. The reds go first. Within just 10 meters of the surface, red light has been absorbed completely by the water. This is why blood looks green underwater, and why red fish appear gray in the depths. Then, the oranges disappear, then the yellows. By the time you reach 100 meters down, the world exists only in shades of blue and violet. And by 200 meters, even those colors are growing faint, dim, dreamlike. The creatures who live in this twilight realm have adapted to the fading light in remarkable ways. There are fish here called hatchetfish, and their bodies are so thin, so compressed from side to side, that they look almost like silver coins with fins. Their eyes are enormous, pointing upward, always searching for the silhouettes of prey against the faint glow above. They hang suspended in the water, motionless, conserving every bit of energy. Because in the Twilight Zone, food is scarce, and wasting energy means death. Lanternfish drift through these depths by the billions. They're small, no longer than your finger, but they might be the most numerous vertebrates on the entire planet. Each one carries rows of light-producing organs called photophores along their bellies. These living lights glow in the dimness, constellations of blue-green stars in the underwater dusk. Each species has its own pattern, its own arrangement of lights, like a secret code that only their kind can read. And here, in the Twilight Zone, something extraordinary happens every single day. As the sun sets on the surface far above, creatures from the deep begin to rise. And as the sun rises again, they descend. This is called diel vertical migration, and it's the largest animal migration on Earth. Not across distance, but through depth. Billions upon billions of fish, squid, jellyfish, and tiny crustaceans travel hundreds of meters up and down each day. They rise at night to feed in the more productive surface waters, then sink back down during the day to hide from predators in the darkness below. Imagine that. Every day, an entire ecosystem rises and falls like a slow breath. The ocean itself is breathing, inhaling and exhaling life through its layers. And all of this happens mostly unseen by us in the dim blue twilight where light and darkness meet. The silence here is profound. Sound travels differently in water than in air, faster and farther. But there's a quality to the quiet in these depths that feels almost sacred. The muffled, distant realm where the busy surface world is just a memory. If you listen closely, you might hear the faint clicks and pops of shrimp, the low moans of distant whales, but mostly there is stillness. A slow, gentle stillness that seems to seep into everything. The pressure here is beginning to increase. At 200 meters, the pressure is about 20 times what you feel at the surface. That's 20 kilograms pressing on every square centimeter of your body. But the creatures here don't feel it as pressure. They've evolved with it. Their bodies are mostly water, and water doesn't compress. They exist in balance with the weight of the ocean above them, neither crushed nor struggling, simply existing as they always have. As we drift deeper, the twilight becomes darker. 500 meters down, 600, 700. The blue light is fading now, becoming the deepest, darkest blue you can imagine. Like the color of the sky in that brief moment after sunset, when day has ended, but night hasn't quite begun. The temperature is dropping too. The warmth of the surface is long gone. Here, the water hovers just a few degrees above freezing. Cold. But again, the creatures here don't know warmth. This cold is all they've ever known. To them, it's simply the temperature of existence. And then, somewhere around 1,000 meters, something happens. The last photons of sunlight give up their long journey from the surface. They can travel no farther. And below this point, there is only darkness. Total, complete, absolute. But if we drift a little deeper, where even twilight is just a memory, we enter a realm that humans have only recently begun to understand. Below 1,000 meters, darkness becomes absolute, complete, total. This is the midnight zone, the Bath Epipelagic realm, stretching from 1,000 meters down to 4,000 meters below the surface. To call it dark doesn't quite capture the reality. This is a darkness that no human who has ever lived on land has experienced naturally. Even the darkest cave, the most lightless room, has some ambient light, some scattered photons finding their way in. But here, there is nothing. No light has existed here for millions of years, except for the light that life itself creates. The pressure at these depths is immense. At 2,000 meters, it's 200 times the pressure at the surface. At 3,000 meters, it's 300 times. The weight of an entire ocean pressing down. If you could somehow transport a styrofoam cup to these depths, the pressure would compress it to the size of a thimble. The air spaces would collapse completely. And yet, life thrives here. Life that has never known any other pressure, never experienced the lightness of the surface world. The temperature here stays consistently near freezing, around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, just above the point where water would become ice. This cold is permanent, unchanging, eternal. There are no seasons in the midnight zone, no summer warmth or winter chill, just the endless, patient cold of the deep. In the absence of sunlight, The creatures here have evolved something magical. They create their own light. Bioluminescence, the ability to produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. And it's not rare here. It's not unusual. In fact, scientists estimate that up to 90% of the creatures living in the midnight zone can produce light. Think about that. 9 out of every 10 animals you would encounter in these depths can glow. The anglerfish is perhaps the most famous of these glowing creatures. The females, which are much larger than the males, carry a modified spine that extends from their heads like a fishing rod. At the end of this spine dangles a small, glowing lure filled with bioluminescent bacteria. The anglerfish sits motionless in the darkness, dangling this light, waiting. In a realm where food is desperately scarce, this little beacon is irresistible to smaller fish. They approach, curious, hungry, drawn to the only light they may have seen in days. And then, in one explosive moment, the anglerfish strikes. Its massive jaws, lined with needle-like teeth, snap forward. The prey never escapes. The male anglerfish lives a strange, almost sad existence. He's tiny, sometimes 100 times smaller than the female. His entire purpose is to find a female and fuse with her. He bites into her body and never lets go. Over time, his body merges with hers, his organs deteriorating until he's nothing more than a small growth on her side, providing sperm whenever she needs it. He loses his eyes, his fins, his independence. He becomes a permanent part of her. In the vast emptiness of the midnight zone, finding a mate is so difficult that when it happens, it must be forever. Drifting through these depths are vampire squid, though their name is more frightening than they are. They're actually quite small and gentle, feeding on marine snow, the constant rain of organic particles falling from the waters above. When threatened, the vampire squid can turn itself inside out, wrapping its webbed arms over its body and exposing rows of harmless, fleshy spines. It looks alarming, defensive, but it's all show. They also produce one of the most stunning bioluminescent displays in the ocean. When disturbed, they eject glowing mucus from the tips of their arms, creating a cloud of blue light that hangs in the water, confusing predators while the vampire squid jets away into the darkness. The gulper eel, sometimes called the pelican eel, has evolved one of the strangest bodies in the ocean. Its mouth is enormous, far larger than its body, capable of opening wide enough to swallow prey larger than itself. Its jaw is loosely hinged, able to expand like a balloon. The rest of its body is just a thin whip-like tail that can stretch to over 1 meter in length. It drifts through the water with its huge mouth open, hoping that something, anything, will swim inside. In a place where you might go weeks without encountering food, being able to eat anything you do find, regardless of size, is the difference between survival and starvation. Everything moves slowly here. Energy is precious. There's no sunlight to fuel photosynthesis, so no plants, no algae, no base to the food web. Everything living in the midnight zone depends on the organic matter that falls from above. The marine snow, dead plankton, fecal pellets, molted shells, the discarded fragments of life from the surface world, drifting down like a gentle, constant snowfall. This snow falls slowly, taking weeks to reach the deepest parts of the ocean, and by the time it arrives, most of the nutrients have already been consumed by creatures living in the layers above. So the animals here have adapted to survive on almost nothing. Their metabolisms are incredibly slow. They move only when necessary. Many have reduced their skeletons and muscles to save energy. Their bodies are soft, gelatinous, mostly water. Swimming takes effort, and effort requires energy they don't have. So they drift, they wait. They exist in a state of patient stillness that's hard for us to imagine. The darkness here is not empty. It's full of quiet life. Creatures that have been evolving for millions of years, becoming more and more perfectly adapted to this seemingly impossible environment. They've lost what they don't need and kept what they do. Many fish here have no eyes, or tiny, useless eyes. Vision is expensive, energetically. Building and maintaining eyes requires resources. And in total darkness, eyes are worse than useless. They're a burden. So evolution has taken them away. But losing sight doesn't mean losing perception. These creatures sense the world in other ways, through pressure receptors that detect the tiniest movements in the water, through chemical sensors that can smell a single molecule from meters away, through the lateral line system that runs along a fish's body, feeling vibrations and changes in water flow. The world they perceive is different from ours, but it's no less real. It's a world of pressure and chemistry, of tiny movements and subtle changes, of patience and stillness. And in this darkness, the bioluminescent lights take on profound meaning. A flash of blue might be a signal to a mate. A pattern of glowing spots might be a warning to a rival. A sudden burst of light might be a defense, startling a predator. Or it might be a lure, drawing prey closer. Each light is communication, survival, life persisting against the darkness. The midnight zone teaches us something important. That darkness is not empty. That absence is not nothing. That life finds a way even in conditions we would consider impossible. These creatures have never seen the sun, will never feel warmth, will never know the abundance of the surface world. And yet, they persist. Generation after generation, living their slow, patient lives in the deep. And yet, even this is not the bottom. The ocean has deeper secrets still. Imagine a place flatter than any desert, darker than any night, more remote than the surface of Mars. This is the abyssal plain, the abyssal zone, stretching from 4,000 meters down to 6,000 meters below the surface. This realm covers more than half of the Earth's surface. 54% of our entire planet is abyssal plain. And yet, we've explored less of it than we've explored space. The pressure here is crushing. At 4,000 meters, it's 400 times the pressure at the surface. At 6,000 meters, it's 600 times. The weight of the ocean above is so immense that it would instantly crush almost anything from the surface world. A wooden ship would be compressed to a fraction of its size. A human body would not survive even a moment. And yet, life exists here. Life that is perfectly, beautifully adapted to this extreme environment. The seafloor here is soft, incredibly soft, covered in a layer of sediment that can be kilometers deep. This sediment is made of billions upon billions of tiny shells, skeletons, and organic particles that have been falling from the surface for millions of years. It's like the finest powder, so soft that anything setting down on it sinks slightly into it. The sediment is a deep, dark brown or grey, and it stretches in every direction, flat and featureless, for hundreds or thousands of kilometers. This is perhaps the quietest, stillest place on Earth. The water here barely moves. There are no currents to speak of, no waves, no turbulence, just an almost perfect stillness. The temperature is constant, hovering just above freezing, and it never changes. Not with seasons, not with weather, not with anything. This is a realm of perfect, eternal sameness. And in this sameness, life moves very, very slowly. Sea cucumbers creep across the sediment at speeds so slow you couldn't perceive their movement if you watched them. They're gentle creatures, soft-bodied and harmless, filtering the sediment for any organic particles they can find. They eat mud, essentially, extracting whatever tiny amount of nutrition exists in it, then excreting the rest. They leave trails behind them in the sediment, winding paths that show where they've been, like the tracks of snails in a garden, but much, much slower. Sea pigs, which are actually a type of sea cucumber, waddle across the abyssal plain on tube feet that look like little legs. They're pink, translucent and strange-looking, like tiny inflated pigs, which is how they got their name. They travel in herds, sometimes hundreds of them together, all facing the same direction, all moving in slow synchrony towards some source of food detected in the current. They're farming, in a way. They cultivate bacteria on the seafloor sediment and then eat the bacteria-rich mud. Tripod fish have evolved one of the most energy-efficient lifestyles in the ocean. They have 3 elongated fins, 2 pelvic fins, and 1 tail fin that they use as stilts. They stand on these fins on the seafloor, elevated above the sediment, facing into the faint current. Their other fins are held out to the sides, covered in sensors, waiting to detect the movement of tiny crustaceans drifting by. They stand motionless for hours, days perhaps, barely breathing, barely living, just waiting. When something touches their sensory fins, they strike with minimal movement, using as little energy as possible. Then, they return to stillness. Life here is defined by scarcity. Food is so rare that every calorie must be conserved. Movement is expensive. Growing is expensive. Even thinking is expensive. So the creatures of the abyss have slowed down to match the pace of their world. Their metabolisms run at a fraction of the speed of surface creatures. Their hearts beat slowly. Their bodies grow slowly. They reproduce slowly, if at all. Scientists believe that many of these creatures live for extraordinarily long times. Decades, certainly, perhaps centuries. There's evidence that some deep-sea fish and invertebrates can live for over 100 years, possibly much longer. Time becomes meaningless when each day is identical to the last, when nothing changes, when existence is measured not in events, but in the slow accumulation of years. And then, very rarely, something extraordinary happens. A whale dies at the surface. Its enormous body, no longer kept buoyant by the effort of living, begins to sink. It falls through the twilight zone, through the midnight zone, and eventually, after hours or days, it comes to rest on the abyssal plain. This is called a whale fall, and it's one of the most important events that can happen in the deep ocean. A whale fall is a gift, a massive, temporary oasis of food in the desert of the abyss. A single whale carcass might weigh 40 tons or more, and it represents more organic material than the abyssal plain sees in years from the marine snow. Within days, creatures begin to arrive. Hagfish, which are primitive, eel-like creatures with no jaws and no bones, appear seemingly from nowhere. They burrow into the whale's body, eating it from the inside out. Sharks arrive, even at these depths, drawn by the scent of decay spreading through the water. They tear chunks of flesh away with their curved teeth. Over weeks and months, the easily accessible soft tissue is consumed. But the whale fall is far from over. A specialized community of creatures moves in, species that exist only in association with whale falls. There are mussels and clams that farm sulfur-loving bacteria in their gills. These bacteria can metabolize the oils and fats still contained in the whale's bones, converting them into energy. There are worms, including the remarkable zombie worms, which have no mouths and no digestive systems. Instead, they burrow into the bones and use acid to dissolve the minerals, then absorb the fats inside. Bacteria living in their bodies convert these fats into energy the worms can use. A whale fall can sustain a complex ecosystem for decades. 30 years? 50 years? Some estimates suggest the largest whales might support life for a century. Over this time, the bones are slowly consumed, slowly dissolved, until nothing remains but a faint stain in the sediment. And then the specialized whale fall community dies or goes dormant, waiting for the next carcass to fall from above, which might be hundreds of kilometers away. The abyssal plain teaches us about patience, about endurance, about the ability to live with scarcity and stillness. The creatures here don't rush. They can't rush. They exist in a state of profound slowness that seems almost meditative. Each movement is deliberate. Each action is necessary. There is no waste, no excess, no hurry. And there's something comforting in that, isn't there? In a world that often feels too fast, too loud, too much, there's something peaceful about imagining a place where slowness is not just accepted, but required, where patience is not a virtue, but a necessity, where time stretches out long and slow, and there's no pressure to be anywhere or do anything except simply exist. But there are places even deeper, where the earth itself cracks open, and the most unexpected thing happens. In the coldest, darkest places on Earth, there are spots where the planet bleeds heat, where superheated water loaded with minerals explodes from cracks in the ocean floor. These are hydrothermal vents, and their discovery in 1977 changed everything we thought we knew about life. Before 1977, scientists believed that all life on Earth ultimately depended on the sun. That photosynthesis was the base of every food web, that without sunlight, complex ecosystems couldn't exist. But then, in the Galapagos Rift, a team of scientists in the submersible Alvin descended to 2,500 meters and found something impossible. A thriving, dense community of life in total darkness, far from any sunlight. Giant tube worms swaying in the current. White crabs crawling over black rocks. Clams the size of dinner plates. Fish, shrimp, octopuses. An entire ecosystem living where there should have been almost nothing. The secret was the vents themselves. At hydrothermal vents, seawater seeps down through cracks in the ocean floor, close to volcanic chambers deep beneath the crust. The water is heated to extreme temperatures, sometimes exceeding 400 degrees Celsius. At the surface, water boils at 100 degrees, but in the deep ocean, the immense pressure raises the boiling point dramatically. So this superheated water remains liquid, becoming a scorching, mineral-rich brew. This heated water then blasts back up through the seafloor, erupting from chimney-like structures built up from minerals precipitating out of the fluid. Some vents, called black smokers, spew water so hot and so full of dark minerals that it looks like black smoke billowing from a factory. Other vents, called white smokers, are cooler and release lighter-colored minerals. The contrast is stark. The water shooting from the vent might be 400 degrees, but just centimeters away, the surrounding ocean is near freezing. This creates one of the most extreme temperature gradients on Earth. And in this gradient, life has found a way. Not through photosynthesis, but through chemosynthesis. Bacteria at the vents use the chemicals in the vent fluid, particularly hydrogen sulfide, as an energy source. They oxidize these chemicals and use the energy to convert carbon dioxide into organic compounds. It's the same basic process as photosynthesis, building sugars from carbon dioxide, but the energy source is chemical rather than light. These bacteria form the base of the food web at hydrothermal vents, taking the place of plants and algae. The giant tube worms, called Riftia pachyptila, are among the most remarkable creatures at the vents. They can grow up to 3 meters long, with their white tubes anchored to the rocks and their red plumes extending into the water. These plumes absorb hydrogen sulfide, oxygen and carbon dioxide from the water. But here's the astonishing part. Adult tube worms have no mouth, no digestive system, no stomach, nothing to eat with and nothing to digest food in. Instead, their bodies are filled with a specialized organ called a trophosome, and this organ is packed with billions of chemosynthetic bacteria. The tube worms provide the bacteria with the chemicals they need, and the bacteria produce organic compounds that feed the worms. It's a perfect symbiosis. The worm and the bacteria are so interdependent that neither could survive without the other. The tube worms grow quickly, perhaps faster than any other deep-sea creature, because they have a constant energy source in their bacterial partners. Yeti crabs, covered in dense mats of pale hair-like setae on their arms, wave these hairy arms over the vent water. They're farming bacteria in this hair, cultivating the microbes, then harvesting them by scraping them into their mouths. The crabs dance back and forth in the narrow temperature zone where the water is warm enough to support bacterial growth, but not so hot it would cook them. It's a delicate balance, a constant dance with heat. Vent shrimp crowd around the vents by the thousands, their bodies pressed close together in the warmer water. They're blind, having no functional eyes, but some species have developed heat-sensing organs on their backs, in the spot where eyes would normally be in their shrimp ancestors. These organs detect the infrared radiation from the hot vent water, allowing the shrimp to navigate toward the heat without burning themselves. They scrape bacteria off the rocks and each other, living in dense, teeming masses in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Each hydrothermal vent is like an isolated island. The vents can be kilometers or even hundreds of kilometers apart, separated by vast stretches of typical deep sea floor. The creatures at the vents are specially adapted to their environment and often can't survive away from it. When a vent stops flowing, which can happen suddenly if the geology shifts, the community dies. The tube worms die, the crabs die, the shrimp die. They must somehow find another vent, which might be impossibly far away, or their genetic line ends. This isolation has led to rapid evolution and high diversity. Each vent system might have its own species, its own unique forms of life found nowhere else. Scientists are still discovering new species at vents every time they visit. The larvae of vent creatures must drift in the deep ocean currents, hoping to find another vent before they die. It's a lottery with terrible odds, and yet it works. Life persists, spreading from vent to vent across the ocean floor. Some scientists believe that hydrothermal vents might be where life on Earth began. In the early oceans, before photosynthesis evolved, before there was much oxygen in the atmosphere, These chemical energy sources might have provided the power for the first organic molecules to form. The conditions at vents, with their heat, minerals, and chemical gradients, could have been the perfect laboratory for the origin of life. If that's true, then we all descend from ancestors who lived in these dark, hot, chemical-rich environments. The vents are not just interesting, they're ancestral. They're home, in the deepest sense. Hydrothermal. Vents remind us that life is more creative than we give it credit for. That energy comes in many forms. That community and cooperation, symbiosis and partnership are powerful survival strategies. The tube worm and its bacteria, the yeti crab and its bacterial gardens. The entire ecosystem working together, depending on each other, thriving in a place that seems designed to kill. And if we follow the trenches even deeper, to the very edge of the world we know, we find places that test the absolute limits of life. There are places so deep that the pressure could crush a car into a soda can. So deep that more people have been to the moon than have visited them. These are the Hadal zones, the ocean trenches named after Hades, the ancient Greek underworld. They are the deepest places in the ocean, deeper than 6,000 meters, and they plunge down in narrow, steep-sided canyons that scar the ocean floor where tectonic plates collide. The Mariana Trench in the western Pacific Ocean is the deepest place we know. Its lowest point, called Challenger Deep, reaches down nearly 11,000 meters, 11 kilometers below the surface. If you could place Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on Earth, into the Mariana Trench, its peak would still be over 2 kilometers underwater. The scale is difficult to comprehend. The pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is over 1,000 times the pressure at the surface, about 1,000 atmospheres, or over 8 tons per square inch. If you could somehow transport yourself there unprotected, you would be crushed instantly. Not slowly, instantly. Your body would compress, your lungs would collapse, your bones would crack. It would be over before you could feel anything. The pressure at these depths is one of the most extreme conditions on Earth. And yet, life exists even here. Fish have been filmed at depths of over 8,000 meters. The Mariana snailfish, a small, translucent, tadpole-like fish, holds the record for the deepest fish ever observed, at 8,178 meters. Its body is soft, almost gelatinous, with minimal bone structure. Its bones are thin and flexible, and many have spaces where there should be solid material. This makes the fish less dense and helps it survive the pressure. These snailfish have no swim bladder, the gas-filled organ that most fish use to control buoyancy. A swim bladder would be crushed instantly at these depths. Instead, they've evolved other ways to remain neutrally buoyant, including storing lipids in their tissues. They hunt small crustaceans called amphipods, which are incredibly abundant in the trenches. The amphipods in the Hadal zone are unlike their shallow water cousins. Some grow to over 30 centimeters long, enormous for a creature that's usually a few centimeters at most. They're scavengers, eating whatever organic material falls into the trench. When scientists put bait traps into the trenches, these amphipods swarm the bait within hours, appearing in their thousands. They can strip a fish carcass to bones in a matter of hours. They're fast, aggressive, and perfectly adapted to the extreme pressure. There are also single-celled organisms in the trenches, foraminifera and xenophyophores, that grow to surprising sizes. Some xenophyophores can be 10 centimeters across, giant for a single cell. They build delicate, lacy shells from sediment particles and live on the seafloor, filtering organic particles. The fact that single-celled life can exist and thrive under such extreme pressure tells us something profound about the resilience of life. The Hadal trenches are isolated from each other. The Mariana Trench is separated from the Tonga Trench, which is separated from the Philippine Trench, and so on. Each trench is its own evolutionary island. Creatures in one trench are often genetically distinct from creatures in another, even if they look similar. They've been separated for so long that they've become different species, evolving independently in their isolated abysses. Only about 5% of the Hadal zones have been explored. We've sent more spacecraft beyond our atmosphere than we've sent submersibles to these depths. The extreme pressure, the cold, the distance, and the darkness make exploration incredibly difficult and expensive. But every time we do visit, we find something new. New species, new behaviors, new mysteries. Strange sounds have been recorded in the deep ocean, sounds we can't fully explain. The bloop, an ultra-low frequency sound detected in 1997, was initially mysterious. It was loud enough to be heard on sensors thousands of kilometers apart. Eventually, scientists determined it was likely the sound of an iceberg calving, breaking apart and grinding against the seafloor, but for years it was unexplained. The bio-duck, a repetitive quacking sound recorded in the Southern Ocean, remained unidentified for decades until it was traced to Antarctic minke whales. But there are other sounds, other mysteries. The ocean is not silent even in the deepest places. It hums with life, with geology, with forces we're only beginning to understand. And sadly, even in the deepest trenches, we've found evidence of human impact. Plastic has been found at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Microplastics in the tissues of amphipods. A plastic bag floating past in the submersible footage. Pollution has reached even these remote, extreme places. It's a sobering reminder that the ocean, despite its vastness, is not infinite. That our actions on the surface ripple down, eventually reaching even the deepest, most isolated places on Earth. The Hadal zones remind us of our own limitations and of life's persistence. That the deepest places still hold mysteries. That isolation creates uniqueness. That even at the very bottom of the world, life finds a way to persist, quietly, patiently, generation after generation. Among all these depths, some creatures have become legends, almost mythical in their size and elusiveness. Some creatures of the deep have grown so large they seem impossible, giants that move through the darkness like living submarines. Deep-sea gigantism is a real phenomenon, and scientists believe it's related to several factors. Cold water, for one. In cold temperatures, metabolisms slow down and creatures can live longer. Longer lives mean more time to grow. The cold also allows water to hold more oxygen, supporting larger bodies. There's also something called Bergmann's rule, which suggests that animals in colder environments tend to be larger than their warm water relatives. Larger bodies have a smaller surface area to volume ratio, which means they lose heat more slowly. In the cold depths, being large is an advantage, and there's efficiency. In a place where food is scarce, being large means you need less food relative to your body weight. Smaller animals have higher metabolic rates per unit of body mass. They need to eat more frequently relative to their size. Large animals can go longer between meals, which is crucial in the deep where meals are rare. The giant squid is perhaps the most famous deep-sea creature, and for good reason. For centuries, sailors told stories of enormous squid attacking ships, pulling men overboard, dragging entire vessels beneath the waves. These stories were dismissed as myths, exaggerations, the fantasies of superstitious sailors, men who spent too long at sea, their minds playing tricks in the endless blue. But the myths were based on truth. Giant squid are real. They exist, and they are every bit as impressive as the legends suggest. They can grow to over 13 meters long, with their tentacles stretched out. Imagine that, 13 meters, longer than a school bus, longer than most rooms in your home. These are creatures of immense size, yet they live in a realm where we rarely see them. Their bodies are streamlined, built for sudden bursts of speed. They have 8 arms and 2 longer feeding tentacles, and each is lined with hundreds of suckers. But these aren't simple suckers. Each one is ringed with sharp serrated chitin, like tiny teeth. When a giant squid grabs prey, those suckers dig in, hold tight, leave circular scars that never fully fade. Their eyes are the largest eyes of any animal on Earth, up to 30 centimeters in diameter, the size of a dinner plate, larger than a human head. These enormous eyes are adapted to collect as much light as possible in the dim depths. The lens is huge, the pupil wide, and behind the retina is a reflective layer that bounces light back through the photoreceptors a second time, doubling the sensitivity. Even the faintest bioluminescent glow, a single photon of light from a distant jellyfish, can be detected by these huge, sensitive eyes. They can see shapes moving hundreds of meters away in water we would perceive as absolute blackness. Why such large eyes? Scientists believe it's to spot sperm whales, their primary predators. Sperm whales don't produce light, but they disturb bioluminescent plankton as they swim. The whale creates a trail of glowing water, and the giant squid's enormous eyes can see this disturbance from far enough away to escape. It's an evolutionary arms race. The whale hunting in darkness. The squid trying to see the hunter before it's too late. Despite their size, giant squid are incredibly elusive. For most of human history, we knew about them only from carcasses that washed up on beaches, their bodies pale and deteriorating, or from remains found in the stomachs of sperm whales, their primary predators. Whalers in the 19th and 20th centuries would sometimes find fresh squid in the stomachs of whales they'd killed, and the size of these squid was almost unbelievable. Arms as thick as a man's leg, beaks the size of fists, eyes intact, staring up from inside the whale's stomach, massive and alien. No one had ever seen a living giant squid in its natural habitat. Not once in all of human history. Not until 2012, when a team of Japanese scientists, led by Tsunemi Kubodera, spent years searching the deep waters off Japan. They used special low-light cameras and deployed them at depths where sperm whales were known to hunt. And finally, after countless dives, countless hours of empty footage, they captured it. A giant squid, alive, moving. The footage was grainy, shot in dim red light to avoid disturbing the animal. But it was real. The squid moved through the water with shocking grace and power. Its tentacles reached out, exploring the camera, the bait. Its enormous eye reflected the light, glowing like a moon in the darkness. It was elegant, deliberate, curious. Not the mindless monster of sailors' tales, but an intelligent creature investigating its world. The footage lasted only minutes before the squid retreated into the darkness, but it changed everything. The giant squid was no longer a myth. It was documented, real. And then there's the colossal squid, even larger and more mysterious than the giant squid. The name alone suggests something out of legend. Colossal. These squid can be shorter in overall length, but much heavier, much more massive. Where the giant squid is built for speed and agility, the colossal squid is built for power. Their mantles, the main body section, are thicker, more muscular. Their arms are shorter but incredibly strong. And their tentacles are lined with sharp rotating hooks in addition to their suckers. Not serrated rings, but actual hooks. Curved, sharp, capable of piercing flesh and holding on with brutal efficiency. These hooks can swivel. They're mounted on stalks, allowing them to rotate and adjust their grip. Imagine being grabbed by something with dozens of rotating hooks digging into your skin, each one capable of independent movement. It's a weapon designed by millions of years of evolution to hold onto. Prey that's trying desperately to escape. Fish, other squid, anything that ventures too close. Very few colossal squid have ever been found, and none have been filmed alive in the wild. Not one. Most of what we know comes from specimens caught accidentally by fishing boats in the Southern Ocean, hauled up from depths of over 1,000 meters. The largest colossal squid ever found was caught off Antarctica in 2007. It weighed nearly 500 kilograms, and scientists estimate it could have weighed much more if it had been fully grown. Some estimates suggest the largest colossal squid could weigh up to 700 kilograms or more. 700 kilograms. That's heavier than a grand piano. A creature that size, moving through the deep ocean, hunting in total darkness, or from remains found in the stomachs of sperm whales. Their beaks, hard and indigestible, are found inside whales and help scientists estimate how large the squid might have been. The beak is made of chitin, the same material as insect exoskeletons, but incredibly dense and hard. It's the only part of the squid that doesn't get digested. By measuring the beak, scientists can estimate the size of the whole animal. Some of the beaks found in whales suggest squid even larger than any we've caught. Squid that might weigh a ton or more. But these are just estimates. We don't know for certain. We still don't know how these enormous squid live, how they hunt. Do they ambush prey from below, rising up from the darkness? Or do they patrol, searching actively? How they mate? Do the males fight each other for access to females? How long do the courtship displays last? How long they live? Estimates range from 5 years to 30 years or more. We simply don't know. Do they migrate through different depths, following food sources, following temperature gradients? Are they solitary or social? Do young colossal squids stay together in groups for protection? How do they find each other in the vastness of the ocean? In an environment with no landmarks, no features, how does a male squid find a female? Is it by scent? By sound? By some sense we don't yet understand? These are questions we can't yet answer. The squid remain mysterious, symbols of how much we still don't understand about the deep. Every specimen found raises more questions than it answers. Every beak discovered in a whale's stomach hints at encounters we'll never witness. The squid live their lives in secret, in darkness, beyond our reach. And perhaps that's how it should be. Perhaps some mysteries should remain mysteries. The Japanese spider crab is the largest arthropod on Earth, and seeing one in person is an experience that stays with you. Its legs can span nearly 4 meters from claw to claw. 4 meters. Imagine standing with your arms stretched out to either side, and then imagine something with legs reaching twice that distance, longer than most cars, long enough to reach from the floor of a room to well above the ceiling. And yet, despite this enormous size, the spider crab's body is relatively small, about 40 centimeters across. Almost all of its size is in those impossibly long, spindly legs. These crabs live on the deep sea floor around Japan, particularly in Suruga Bay and along the southern coasts. They inhabit depths from about 50 meters down to 300 meters or more, places where the light is dim and the water is cold. They move slowly across the sediment on their long legs, like living scaffolding, carefully placing each leg with deliberate precision. Their movements are alien, mechanical almost, each leg bending at multiple joints, reaching forward, finding purchase, pulling the body along. They're scavengers primarily, eating whatever dead material they can find. But they'll also hunt slow-moving prey, small mollusks, sea cucumbers, worms. They use their claws to tear flesh, to crack shells, to pull apart whatever food they encounter. Their claws are powerful, evolved to handle the tough bodies of other deep-sea creatures. But they're not aggressive toward each other, not typically. In areas where food is plentiful, multiple spider crabs might gather, tolerating each other's presence, each focused on feeding. What's remarkable about Japanese spider crabs is their lifespan. They can live for over 100 years. Some estimates suggest they might live even longer, though confirming the age of wild crabs is difficult. A crab that's alive today might have hatched before most humans currently alive were born. It's been walking across the same sea floor for a century, moving through the same slow rhythms, feeding, molting, surviving. The ocean floor around Japan has changed in that time. Earthquakes have shifted the geology. Volcanic activity has created new features. Human fishing has altered the ecosystem. But the crab continues, patient and persistent. Their shells are often covered with algae, sponges, and other small organisms. This isn't parasitism, it's camouflage. The crab actively encourages growth on its carapace, creating a living disguise that helps it blend into the rocky, debris-covered seafloor. To a predator swimming overhead, a spider crab looks like just another rock, another piece of the landscape. The decorations on its shell are carefully cultivated, a garden carried on its back. And then there are giant isopods, creatures that look like they wandered out of a science fiction film. Isopods are related to pillbugs, those little creatures you find under rocks in your garden that roll into balls when disturbed. But deep-sea giant isopods can grow to 50 centimeters long, nearly the size of a football. Some specimens have been found even larger. They're pale, usually white or light purple, with segmented armor plating covering their bodies. 7 pairs of legs extend from their underside, and their large compound eyes sit on either side of their head, giving them wide-angle vision in the dim water. They're scavengers, eating whatever dead material falls to the seafloor. And in the deep, where food is so scarce, they've evolved an extraordinary ability. They can survive for years without eating. Not weeks, not months, years. In captivity, giant isopods have been recorded going over 5 years without food, showing no apparent distress, no weight loss, no behavioral changes. They simply enter a state of near dormancy, their metabolism slowing to almost nothing, waiting for the next meal. When food finally arrives, when a carcass falls from above, or when they encounter something freshly dead, they gorge themselves. They eat until they can barely move, their bodies swelling, their armor plates spreading apart to accommodate the mass of food in their digestive systems. They become so full that they have trouble walking, their legs struggling to carry the extra weight. And then, satisfied, they return to waiting, to the long, patient stillness between meals. There's something both alien and familiar about watching a giant isopod move. The way it walks is recognizable, similar to a pillbug or a crab, but the scale is all wrong. Something that should fit in the palm of your hand is instead 1/2 meter long. It's a reminder that the rules of size we take for granted on land don't always apply in the ocean. In the deep, in the cold, in the dark, creatures can grow to sizes that seem impossible. And they can live in ways that seem equally impossible, surviving on almost nothing, waiting with infinite patience for whatever the ocean provides. The size of these creatures is humbling. They remind us that our world contains giants, real giants, moving through spaces we rarely see. And most of them we've only glimpsed briefly, if at all. The giant squid, filmed for just a few minutes. The colossal squid, never seen alive in the wild. The Japanese spider crab, photographed on the seafloor but largely unstudied. We live on a planet with monsters, gentle monsters, enormous and strange, and we barely know them. There's something comforting, though, in knowing that mysteries remain. That not everything has been discovered, catalogued, explained. That the ocean still holds secrets. That somewhere in the deep, creatures are living their lives, completely unaware of us, untouched by our world. They were here long before we evolved, and they'll likely be here long after we're gone. Time moves slowly for giants. They grow slowly, live slowly, think slowly, if they think at all. They exist in a different temporal realm, where years pass like days, and patience is simply the way things are. But not everything in the deep is giant. Some of the smallest creatures hold the greatest magic. In a world without sun, life learned to make its own stars. Bioluminescence, the ability to produce light through chemical reactions, is one of the most enchanting adaptations in the ocean. And in the deep sea, it's everywhere. It's not unusual or rare. It's normal. It's expected. Scientists estimate that up to 90% of creatures living below 200 meters can produce light. 90%. The deep ocean is not dark because life hasn't found a way to illuminate it. It's dark because we can't see the lights that are there. To us, from the surface, the deep is black. But to the creatures living there, it's alive with light, with signals, with communication, with the constant, subtle glow of life. The chemistry of bioluminescence is elegant in its simplicity. It requires a light-emitting molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. When luciferin reacts with oxygen in the presence of luciferase, it produces light. The reaction is incredibly efficient, perhaps the most efficient light production process known. Almost 100% of the energy is released as light, with virtually no heat. No wasted energy. Compare that to an incandescent bulb, which wastes 90% of its energy as heat. Or even an LED, which is perhaps 80 to 90% efficient. Biology, through millions of years of evolution, hundreds of millions of years of trial and error, has perfected something we still struggle to replicate efficiently with our technology. The word luciferin comes from the Latin word lucifer, meaning light bringer. It's the same root as the name Lucifer, the light bearer. But in this context, there's nothing sinister about it. It's simply light. Pure, cold light. Light without heat. Light without fuel burning. Just a chemical reaction, controlled and precise, producing photons on demand. Different creatures produce different colors of light, though blue and green are most common in the deep sea. This is because blue and green light travels farthest in seawater. The ocean absorbs red light quickly, within meters of the source. Orange and yellow don't travel much farther. But blue and green can travel tens or even hundreds of meters through clear water. So most deep-sea bioluminescence is blue-green, the color that communicates most effectively in their environment. It's evolutionary optimization. Use the wavelength that works. Abandon the wavelengths that don't. But some creatures have found advantages in producing red light. Certain deep-sea dragonfish, for example, produce red bioluminescence and are also able to see red light. Most deep-sea creatures can't see red. Their eyes aren't sensitive to that wavelength. It's invisible to them. So the dragonfish essentially has a private flashlight, a searchlight that illuminates its prey without the prey knowing they're being seen. The dragonfish can hunt in what is, to its prey, total darkness. It sees the small fish and shrimp clearly, their bodies outlined in red light while they remain oblivious. It's an enormous advantage, a secret sense that others don't share. One of the most fascinating uses of bioluminescence is counter-illumination camouflage. Imagine you're a small fish in the twilight zone, where dim sunlight filters down from above. If you're swimming below a predator looking up, you're silhouetted against the brighter water above. You stand out. You're visible. You're a dark shape against a lighter background. In the ocean, this is called being lit from above, and it's a death sentence. Predators looking upward have adapted specifically to spot these silhouettes. But many fish have evolved a solution. They have photophores, light-producing organs on their undersides that produce light, matching the intensity and color of the light coming from above. They glow just enough to erase their silhouette. From below, they blend perfectly with the dim light above them. They become invisible, not by being dark, but by being bright. It's active camouflage, constantly adjusted to match changing light levels. As the fish rises or descends, as the sunlight grows stronger or weaker with the time of day, the fish adjusts its glow, always matching, always invisible. Hatchetfish are masters of counter-illumination. Their flat, silvery bodies are lined with photophores along their undersides. These photophores can be controlled individually, allowing the fish to fine-tune its glow. The light isn't uniform. It's brighter in some areas, dimmer in others, creating a three-dimensional illusion that matches not just the brightness of the light from above, but also the way that light would naturally illuminate their body shape. It's sophisticated, it's elegant, it's invisible. Flashlight fish have developed an even more remarkable strategy. They have special pouches below their eyes, curved chambers filled with bioluminescent bacteria. These bacteria glow constantly, producing a steady, bright light. But the fish can cover and uncover the pouches with a fold of skin, like eyelids, like blinking. They use these lights to communicate with each other in the darkness. A quick flash might mean, "I'm here." A longer glow might mean, "Follow me." Rapid flashing might be alarm, warning of danger. They also use their lights to startle predators. When attacked, a flashlight fish will suddenly uncover its light pouches, creating a bright flash in the darkness. The predator, whose eyes are adapted to near darkness, is temporarily blinded, overwhelmed by the sudden light. In that moment of confusion, the flashlight fish swims away, then covers its lights again, disappearing into the darkness. It's like using a camera flash to blind someone in a dark room. Sudden, disorienting, effective. Flashlight fish also hunt using their lights. They swim close to the seafloor with their lights uncovered. Small crustaceans and plankton are attracted to the light, drawn like moths to a flame. They approach, curious or confused, and the flashlight fish snaps them up. It's using light as bait, just like the anglerfish, but in a different way. Not a lure dangling in front, but a beacon that draws prey close. The firefly squid, found in the waters off Japan, is perhaps one of the most beautiful, bioluminescent creatures in the ocean. It's small, only about 8 centimeters long, but it's covered with thousands of tiny photophores all over its body. Thousands. Each one capable of producing light independently. The squid can control these lights individually, creating patterns, waves of light rippling across its body like a display screen. It can pulse with light, flash in sequences, create moving patterns that communicate with other firefly squid. During mating season, millions of firefly squid gather in Toyama Bay on the coast of Japan. Millions. The water glows blue with their combined light. From the shore, from boats, people can see the water itself glowing, pulsing with the light of countless squid. It's one of the most spectacular natural light shows on Earth, rivaling the northern lights in beauty. And it happens in darkness, far from any city, visible only to those who venture out into the night sea. Local fishermen know the timing, know when the squid will arrive, and they've been witnessing this display for generations. A natural wonder repeated every year, mostly unseen by the wider world. Some creatures use bioluminescence as a defense in more creative ways. When attacked, certain squid and shrimp release a cloud of glowing particles or glowing mucus instead of ink. The predator is suddenly surrounded by light, confused, unable to see clearly. Its vision is overwhelmed. Where is the prey? The glow is everywhere, but the prey is gone. The prey escapes into the darkness while the predator is distracted by the glowing cloud, trying to figure out what just happened. It's like a smokescreen, but made of light, a luminous decoy. Others use bioluminescence as a burglar alarm. Certain jellyfish, when attacked, produce bright flashes of light. The light doesn't harm the predator directly, but it serves another purpose. It attracts larger predators. The small predator attacking the jellyfish suddenly finds itself illuminated, visible to bigger hunters. It has to flee or risk becoming prey itself. The jellyfish sacrifices some of its bioluminescent chemicals to call for help in a way, screaming with light instead of sound. "Help! I'm being attacked!" And in the deep, where larger predators are always looking for an easy meal, that light attracts attention. The small predator usually decides the jellyfish isn't worth the risk. Certain species of octopus have learned to control bioluminescent bacteria that live on their skin. These bacteria glow naturally, but the octopus can move them around, concentrate them in certain areas, create patches of light that it can control and move across its body. The octopus uses these lights for communication, for camouflage, for confusion. When threatened, it might create a bright spot on one side of its body, drawing the predator's attention, while it escapes in the opposite direction. Or it might create patterns that mimic the lights of other, more dangerous creatures. Mimicry through light. Octopuses are among the most intelligent invertebrates on Earth, and their use of bioluminescence shows problem-solving and creativity. They experiment with their lights. They play with patterns. They seem to understand cause and effect, that creating light in one pattern gets one response, while a different pattern gets a different response. They learn. They adapt. They innovate. If you could dive in a submersible through the midnight zone at night, when the dial vertical migration is in full swing, the view would be otherworldly. Not dark and empty as you might expect, but filled with points of light. Blues and greens mostly, with occasional flashes of other colors. Pulses of light moving past the windows like slow fireworks. Slow glows drifting by, jellyfish and ctenophores pulsing with bioluminescence. Sudden bright flashes in the distance, creatures communicating or defending or hunting. The ocean, from inside, from within the depths, is full of constellations. Living constellations that move and pulse and communicate. Some researchers describe it as flying through space. Stars all around, above and below, stars that move and respond and live. But unlike the stars in space, these stars are close. Close enough to touch if you were outside the submersible. Close enough to see in detail. Each one a creature, a living being, producing light for its own reasons, living its own life. Bioluminescence reminds us that beauty exists for reasons we don't always understand. That light in darkness is precious, is meaningful, is powerful. That creatures separated from us by millions of years of evolution and kilometers of water still create things that we find beautiful. There's no reason a jellyfish's light should move us emotionally, and yet it does. There's no reason we should find the glow of a deep-sea fish enchanting, and yet we do. Beauty transcends. It exists in the deep just as it exists on the surface, just as it exists in our lives, in our art, in our moments of wonder. And maybe that's one of the most comforting thoughts of all, that beauty is universal, that even in the darkest, most remote places, life creates light, creates wonder, creates something worth seeing. And in all this darkness, life has found the most unexpected ways to sense the world, to perceive reality without relying on eyes or light. When you can't see, you learn to feel the world in entirely new ways. The creatures of the deep sea have evolved senses so alien to our experience that they're almost impossible to imagine. They perceive reality through channels we don't have, in ways we can't directly experience. But they're real, and they work, and they've been working for millions of years, refined by evolution into tools of exquisite sensitivity. Fish have something called a lateral line system, and it's one of the most remarkable sensory organs in nature. It's a series of sensory cells running along both sides of their body, from head to tail, usually visible as a faint line running horizontally along the fish's flank. These sensory cells are called neuromasts, and they're covered by a gel-like substance called a cupula. When water moves past the fish, it displaces this cupula, bending the sensory hairs beneath. The fish can detect these movements with extraordinary precision. The lateral line detects changes in water pressure and movement. Not sound, exactly, though sound is pressure waves. Not touch, though it's similar. It's something in between. It's detecting the displacement of water caused by another creature moving nearby, even if that creature is completely silent and invisible in the darkness. It's like having touch at a distance, like being able to feel someone walking behind you without seeing them or hearing them, just by sensing the air they displace. Except in water, this sense is much more effective. Water is denser than air, and movements create stronger, more persistent pressure waves. A fish can sense the shape, size, and speed of something passing by without seeing it, hearing it, or touching it directly. It can detect the wake left behind by another creature that passed seconds ago. It can sense turbulence, vortices, the subtle swirls and eddies that every moving thing creates in water. In complete darkness, a predator can hunt using this sense alone, feeling the vibrations of prey moving through the water, feeling the panic of a wounded fish, the erratic movements that signal vulnerability. Prey can detect predators approaching from behind, from the side, from any direction, giving them precious moments to escape. The lateral line turns the water itself into a sensory medium, transmitting information through pressure and flow, through disturbances in the fluid that surrounds everything. Blind cavefish, which live in total darkness in underground rivers and lakes, have highly developed lateral line systems. They've lost their eyes completely, but they navigate complex cave systems, avoid obstacles, find food, and interact socially all through their lateral line sense. They can see through water pressure. To them, the world is a landscape of flows and pressures, of movements and stillness. It's a different reality, but it's no less complete than our visual reality. In the deep, where vision is limited or impossible, the lateral line becomes crucial. It's always on, always sensing, providing a constant stream of information about the world around the fish. Every current, every movement, every other creature nearby creates a pressure signature. And the fish reads these signatures the way we read a page, constantly, effortlessly, instinctively. Some deep-sea sharks and rays have evolved electroreception, the ability to sense electrical fields, and it's perhaps the most alien sense we can discuss. All living creatures produce weak electrical signals as their muscles contract and their nerves fire. Every heartbeat generates a tiny electrical pulse. Every movement of a gill, every twitch of a fin, creates electrical activity. These signals are incredibly weak, measured in microvolts or even nanovolts. But sharks can detect them. They sense electricity using special organs called ampullae of Lorenzini, named after the scientist who first described them. These are small pores on the shark's snout, filled with a gel-like substance that's highly conductive to electricity. The pores connect to sensory cells deep in the shark's skin. When an electrical field passes through the gel, it stimulates these cells, and the shark perceives it as a signal. The shark can sense the location and strength of electrical sources around it. This sense is so acute that sharks can detect changes as small as 5 nanovolts per centimeter, 5 billionths of a volt. To put that in perspective, if you could somehow sense electricity at that level, you could detect a single AA battery from over 1,500 kilometers away. That's the level of sensitivity we're talking about. It's almost incomprehensible. It's beyond anything we can directly experience or truly understand. A shark can find prey buried in the sediment, completely hidden from view, by sensing the tiny electrical field generated by the prey's heartbeat or gill movements. A flounder lying flat on the seafloor, perfectly camouflaged, invisible even from centimeters away, is still detectable through the weak electrical signals its body produces. The flounder might be completely still, barely breathing, trying to avoid detection. But its heart is still beating, and that heartbeat generates electricity, and the shark can sense it. Hammerhead sharks have taken electroreception to an extreme. Their wide, hammer-shaped heads are covered with ampulla of Lorenzini. The bizarre shape of their head isn't just for show. It's a sensory antenna maximizing the surface area available for electrical sensing. A hammerhead can sweep its head back and forth over the sea floor like a metal detector, searching for hidden prey. When it detects an electrical signal, it can pinpoint the source with remarkable accuracy, then dig into the sand to extract the hidden meal. Sharks also use electroreception for navigation. The Earth has a magnetic field, and when the shark swims through this field, it generates weak electrical currents in the shark's body and in the surrounding seawater. The shark can sense these currents through its ampullae of Lorenzini, effectively sensing the magnetic field indirectly. This allows sharks to navigate over vast distances, following invisible magnetic highways through the ocean. They know where they are, where they've been, where they're going, all without landmarks or visual cues. The Earth itself is their map. Chemical sensing in the deep is also extraordinary, operating at a level of sensitivity that makes our sense of smell seem crude by comparison. Many creatures have olfactory organs far more sensitive than anything we possess. They can detect individual molecules of a scent in the water, tracking it back to its source over great distances. Water is an excellent medium for chemical communication. Scent molecules dissolve and disperse, creating gradients that can be followed, trails that can be traced back to their origin. A hagfish, for example, has one of the most sensitive senses of smell in the animal kingdom. It can detect the scent of a dead or dying fish from several kilometers away. Several kilometers. That's following a chemical trail through moving water, through currents, through a fluid environment where scents disperse and mix and fade. And the hagfish follows it, swimming in the general direction of increasing scent concentration, making adjustments as it goes, until it finds the source, the carcass, the meal. Hagfish are primitive creatures, jawless, boneless, almost unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. They look like eels, but they're not fish in the traditional sense. They're more ancient than that, and their sense of smell is their primary sense, their window into the world. They're blind, or nearly so, with tiny, poorly developed eyes that can barely detect light and dark. But they don't need sight. They have smell, and that's enough. The olfactory organs in deep-sea fish are often enormous relative to their body size. Large chambers lined with sensory tissue, designed to maximize contact between water and chemoreceptors. Water flows through these chambers constantly, bringing new scents, new information. The fish is always smelling, always analyzing the chemical landscape around it, looking for food, avoiding predators, searching for mates, all through chemistry. Some deep-sea fish have eyes so large and so specialized that they can detect the faintest shadows in near-total darkness. The barrel-eye fish, for instance, has a transparent, fluid-filled head and tubular eyes that point upward through this transparent dome. These eyes are incredibly sensitive to light, able to detect levels of illumination we would perceive as complete darkness. They're looking for the silhouettes of prey against the faint light from above, shadows darker than the background. But the eyes are fixed, pointing upward, unable to look forward or down. So the barrel eye has evolved small secondary light-sensing organs to detect light from other directions. Primitive eyes, not for forming images, but for detecting light and dark, helping the fish orient itself. Other fish have lost their eyes entirely. In total darkness, where light is absent or useless, eyes are expensive to build and maintain. They require energy to develop, energy to operate, space in the skull, protection from damage. And they provide no benefit if there's nothing to see. So evolution has taken them away. Some deep-sea fish are born with eyes that degenerate as they mature, sinking into their heads, becoming smaller and non-functional, eventually disappearing beneath the skin. Others are born without eyes at all, just smooth skin, where eyes would be on their ancestors. They navigate through touch, through pressure sensing, through chemical cues, through any sense except vision. And they do fine. They survive, reproduce, thrive in their lightless realm. There's growing evidence that some deep-sea creatures can sense the Earth's magnetic field directly, using it for navigation. Just as birds use magnetic sensing to migrate thousands of kilometers across continents and oceans, deep-sea fish might use it to navigate the vast, featureless expanses of the abyss. The magnetic field lines could serve as invisible roads, highways that run north-south, guiding creatures from one place to another without landmarks, without light, without any of the visual cues we rely on. They just know which way is north, which way is south, and they can use that information to navigate. Some fish have been found with tiny crystals of magnetite, a magnetic mineral, in their tissues, particularly in areas associated with the nervous system. These crystals might act as biological compasses, aligning with the Earth's magnetic field, providing the fish with a sense of direction. It's still being studied, still being understood, but the evidence is accumulating. Magnetic sense is real. It's used by many animals, and in the deep, where other navigation cues are absent, it might be essential. Time perception in the deep is also likely very different from ours. When you live in a place where there's no day or night, no seasonal changes, no cues from the sun, no cycles of light and dark, how do you perceive time? Some scientists believe that deep-sea creatures experience time much more slowly than surface creatures. Their slow metabolisms, their slow movements, their slow growth, their long lifespans might correspond to a slower internal clock. If your heart beats once per minute instead of once per second, does time feel different? If you take hours to do what another creature does in minutes, is your subjective experience of duration different? We don't know. We can't know. We can't experience their perception directly. We can't step into their consciousness and see the world as they see it. But it's a fascinating thought. A creature that lives for a century might experience that century differently than we would. A year might feel like a season to them. A day might feel like an hour. Or perhaps time is simply a different concept altogether, not measured in standardized units, but in events, in experiences, in the slow accumulation of moments. The creatures of the deep remind us that reality is what you can sense, that the world exists in as many versions as there are ways to perceive it. A bat perceives the world through echolocation, constructing a sonic map of its surroundings, hearing shapes and distances. A bee perceives the world in ultraviolet light, seeing patterns on flowers that are completely invisible to us, patterns that guide them to nectar. And a deep-sea fish perceives the world through pressure, electricity, chemistry, and the faintest glimmers of bioluminescence. Each perception is real. Each is valid. Each is a window into a different version of the same universe. And that's humbling, isn't it? To realize that our experience of reality is just one among countless others. That the world is far larger, far stranger, far more diverse than our senses allow us to perceive. That there are creatures living on the same planet as us, in the same ocean we swim in when we go to the beach, who experience reality in ways we can barely imagine. The deep sea, with its alien senses and impossible creatures, reminds us that we see only a tiny slice of what exists. And that's okay. We don't need to see everything to appreciate the wonder of it all. We don't need to understand every sense to marvel at the diversity of perception. The universe is larger than our awareness of it, and that's beautiful. And now, as our journey reaches its deepest point, let us rest here in the quiet. Let us float, suspended in this dark, cold, patient place. There's no need to go farther. We've descended as deep as we need to. And here, in the stillness, we can simply be. The ocean teaches us many things, if we're willing to listen. It teaches patience. The creatures of the deep wait days, weeks, months between meals. They don't rush. They can't rush. They exist in a state of constant patience, and they survive. It teaches adaptation. Life in the deep has found ways to thrive in conditions we would consider impossible. Crushing pressure, total darkness, near freezing temperatures. And yet life persists. It adapts, it evolves, it finds a way. The ocean teaches resilience. Despite scarcity, despite isolation, despite the harshness of the environment, life continues. Generation after generation, creatures are born, live and die in the deep, contributing their small part to the ongoing story of life on Earth. They don't question their existence. They don't wonder why. They simply live, because living is what they do. And perhaps most importantly, the ocean teaches us about darkness. We're often afraid of the dark. It represents the unknown, the unseen, the dangerous. But in the deep ocean, darkness is not something to fear. It's simply the natural state. The creatures there don't fear the darkness. They live in it. They thrive in it. They create light within it. Darkness in the deep is not empty. It's full. Full of life, full of movement, full of quiet beauty. There's comfort in that, isn't there? The idea that darkness is not empty. That even when we can't see, even when we feel lost or alone, there's still life around us. Still movement, still existence. The deep sea is never truly empty, even in its darkest places. And neither are we. The ocean is patient. It doesn't hurry. It doesn't rush. Tides come and go. Currents flow. Waves rise and fall. But the ocean itself, the vast body of water covering most of our planet, simply exists. It's been here for billions of years. It will be here for billions more. Our lives are brief flickers in comparison, tiny moments of consciousness in an ancient, endless sea. And there's something peaceful about that perspective. We don't have to carry the weight of eternity. We're just visiting, just passing through. And the ocean will be here when we're gone, continuing its slow, patient cycles. 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. 80%. We've mapped the surface of Mars in more detail than we've mapped our own seafloor. We've sent probes to the edges of our solar system, but vast stretches of our own ocean remain mysterious. There are species we've never seen, ecosystems we've never discovered, wonders we can't even imagine yet. And that's beautiful. That means there's still mystery, Still discovery, still wonder waiting for us, or for whoever comes after us. As you lie here, drifting towards sleep, imagine yourself still suspended in the deep, weightless, supported by the water on all sides. You're not sinking, you're not rising, you're just floating, perfectly balanced in the dark. The pressure is all around you, but you don't feel it. You're in equilibrium with it. You and the ocean are one. Far above, the surface world continues. Waves crash on shores. Ships pass overhead. People go about their lives. But here, in the deep, there's only stillness, only quiet, only the slow, patient existence of creatures who have all the time in the world. A bioluminescent jellyfish drifts past, its body pulsing with soft blue light. It doesn't notice you. It's on its own journey, moving through the water with the slow, rhythmic contractions of its bell. It's been doing this for millions of years. Its ancestors and its ancestors' ancestors, all drifting, all pulsing, all glowing softly in the dark. There's no rush, no urgency, just existence, just being. In the distance, you might see a faint glow, perhaps another jellyfish, perhaps a school of lanternfish, their photophores twinkling like stars. Perhaps something else, something unknown. It doesn't matter. You're safe here. You're held by the water, surrounded by the darkness, part of the ocean's ancient rhythm. Your breathing slows, in and out, like the tides, like the slow currents of the deep, in and out. Each breath is a wave, gently rising and falling. There's no effort, no strain, just the natural rhythm of breath, of life, of existence. And as you drift deeper into sleep, remember this: the ocean continues without you, and that's okay. The deep sea doesn't need you to watch it, doesn't need you to understand it. It exists whether you're aware of it or not. And there's comfort in that, in knowing that the world is larger than your awareness of it. That mystery and beauty exist beyond your perception. That you can rest, you can sleep, you can let go, and the universe will continue. The giant tube worms will continue swaying in the vent currents. The angler fish will continue dangling, their lures in the darkness. The snailfish will continue hunting in the trenches. The marine snow will continue falling, slowly, endlessly, like a gentle rain that never stops. And all of it will happen whether you're awake or asleep, whether you're thinking about it or dreaming of something else. The ocean doesn't need your attention. It just is. And you too can just be. You don't have to do anything right now. You don't have to think anything. You don't have to solve anything, or understand anything, or accomplish anything. You can simply exist, like the creatures of the deep, present, quiet, patient, resting in the darkness, supported by something larger than yourself. The deep is patient, and so can you be. Let the darkness hold you. Let the quiet surround you. Let the slow rhythm of the ocean become your rhythm. Breathing, slow, deep, peaceful. There's no need to swim, no need to move. The water will hold you. The darkness will keep you. And in the morning, the light will return, as it always does. But for now, for this moment, you can rest in the deep, safe, held, at peace. The ocean breathes with you, in and out, rising and falling, slow and steady. And somewhere, far below, in the darkest, quietest places on Earth, life continues, patient, resilient, beautiful. And you are part of it all, part of the ocean, part of the Earth, part of the ancient, endless cycle of existence. You belong here. You are welcome here. You are home. Rest now. The deep is patient. The darkness is gentle. And you are safe. Sleep well. The ocean will still be here when you wake, and so will you. Drift now, down into sleep, down into dreams, down into the soft, dark, peaceful depths where there is nothing to do and nowhere to be. Just rest, just peace, just the slow, eternal rhythm of the sea. And as you fade into sleep, know this: the universe is still unfolding. Stars are still being born in distant galaxies. Waves are still rolling onto shores. Creatures are still glowing in the deep. And you are part of it all. A small part, perhaps, but a part nonetheless. You matter. Your existence matters. And the universe would be incomplete without you. But for now, for tonight, you can rest. The universe will continue without your watching. And that's a gift. The gift of sleep. The gift of letting go. The gift of trust that everything will be here when you return. So rest, dream, let go. The deep sea is patient, and it will wait for you. Good night.